Okay, call the meeting to order at 4:04. Okay, and I don't have any issues with the agenda. Does anybody have any issues with the agenda of some emergency item 48? Okay, then who's going to take minutes?
I can volunteer. It's been a bit since I've done it.
Yeah, I don't keep track.
Second.
Okay. Nice try
Thank
that
you,
way.
Fred. Thank you.
Fred, you're
Okay.
on mute though. Fred.
Yes, I know. Thank you.
Okay, we got that done there. We have a guest. Hi, Peggy. And you're here for any particular agenda item? Do you, I see Peggy Homer is the name there. I was just checking. Can you hear me? She doesn't seem to hear. But there's no mute there. Okay, well, we'll see if it comes up with that. I'm gonna move, let's see, let's just do our perfunctory. We have a lot of things to do today, but let's see, I'm gonna, let's see. Okay. Okay, we see minutes from our last meeting. Let's run through this. I can't remember who who said they read anything or not. I know who wrote it, but I couldn't tell who. Somebody might have said they reviewed it, but look through what you see on the page here and give me some ready to move ons from whoever's reviewing it, so I could scroll down.
Michael, can I make a tiny
Please just
Tiny.
make them, just tell me.
edit? Under the students, members present,
Yes,
I would have DSHS.
okay.
I told you it was tiny.
Oh, tiny, big or small, just blurt them out.
I'm thinking of all the people reading this 50 years from now.
Where do you have a futuristic perspective? Can I scroll down?
The HS was purposefully left out because you always need something for somebody to find so that people could feel good about adding their own nuance and make it just that much better.
I do that
Okay.
too, Frank.
Well, thank you, Frank, for allowing us to have these opportunities.
I'm good with this page.
I assume others are. Let's see if we spelled people's names right. We got people's names spelled right.
So wait, did we need a roll call to open this meeting?
I've stopped doing that. It seems to be, I don't see other groups doing it, even though they were told, so
Okay.
I've stopped doing it.
Yeah, I'm good with the minutes.
Yep.
I move to accept the minutes as edited.
Second,
Okay, any discussion? Michael, roll call vote. Michael, aye. Frank,
Aye.
Brad,
Aye.
Fred,
aye.
Andy,
Abstain.
okay, and Tom?
Aye.
Okay, so we had a 5-0-1 vote. Okay. Let's see. I'll stop sharing this. And we've got the minutes done. Okay, I'm going to take some stuff out of order. And I'll ask again to Peggy Homer, can you hear me now?
Mhm.
Are you here for any particular agenda item?
No,
Oh, okay, fine. Welcome to the meeting.
Thank
you. I wanted to move on to the warrant, I wanted to move to the students warrant article because of March 2nd. It's on March 2nd. Whoops, oh man, I made a mistake here.
Advisory.
Advisory is on Wednesday is, wow. I can't get, oh, there it is. I'm trying to find my Zoom again so I could share a file here.
The very last item on the
Yeah.
advisory.
Okay, I wanted to, what I was gonna do is is the share, where is it here? I wanted to, it was a little vague as to how our, there's two issues I have for the advisory meeting. One is the sending them a memo of support. And second is to discuss the budgetary implications of the, what we think of the warrant article. I'll take maybe the quicker, easier one first. Of the way the vote was, we voted to go to the select board to send it there. I don't know if we need another vote because I think it was sort of general to send it to other departments. But what I sent you out earlier by email is I took the select board letter of support that we had sent. And I cleaned it up a little bit, made a few changes here or there. It's still the same length here. It's in front of you. And this is it. The whole thing is on the screen. And what, so I don't know whether we feel, I could just send this off as part of that last motion. When somebody feels we should vote again. It's basically this, it may be a little cleaner, but I kept the text roughly the same.
Mhm.
I don't know if I can leave it with you guys to, if anybody wants to reread it again. Not sure how much time I want to spend on it between now and.
Michael, I'm fine with it. And since it only takes 10 seconds, I would suggest we vote on it. So you can say at the advisory, we voted on it.
Okay, fine.
But,
Fine. Well, I
but
guess we already did vote. We already voted to support it on February 7th. It's only a matter of whether we vote to send this to an advisory, which I don't think, I think our last, I guess I'll move to send a letter of support to the advisory committee.
second,
Any discussion?
Excellent letter.
yeah, very good.
And yeah, I had a little first, second, third, fourth. I actually, at some point, I'm going to send out a version of this that I pared down. I pared down a bunch to see if it gets close to the 2 minutes needed for town meeting. So I'm going to send, at some point, I'll send you out a version that's close to 2 minutes to see if people have any observations about what makes it a little more how it works before I do so somebody could read it at town meeting and keep within the 2 minute limit. I was surprised that this takes about, just what you see there, takes well over closer to 3 minutes. Okay, then Michael, I, Tom,
Aye.
Andy,
Aye.
Frank,
Aye.
Fred,
That's you,
Hi.
Fred.
was that, come on, Brad, you gotta help him out. Brad,
Aye.
did I hear a grunt from Fred?
You heard a grunt from Fred.
Okay, fine.
An affirmative,
Positive,
an
a
affirmative
positive
grunt.
grunt.
This is 6-0. Then I guess I called it here a citizens warrant article excited. I think that's what it really formally is.
Yep.
Yep.
Now I'm gonna unshare. God, when I shrink this thing down, I'm having a little trouble. God, where's my, for some reason my Zoom controls are not, oh, there it is. Okay, now I see what the problem is. Let me stop sharing. And I want to share the student's petition here or article. Okay. This is I mean, the above is the introductory whereases and what we've done and whatever else. I've shifted this down to, there's the be it resolved here. Then you have the bullets here and then the last thing here. What came up at one of the meetings, for sure at the select board, was what are the budgetary implications of this warrant article? This overlaps with some other things that came up, like probably advisory that we're going to get to later about budget stuff. So the question here is, the way it says, it recommends that the select board consider taking the following action. And so it's purely recommending things. Nothing here is required.
Michael,
Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Can you make that any larger?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Really hard to read.
Okay, no problem.
And while you're doing that, Michael, can I ask, are you covering this right now? Because can this be edited at this point?
Can what?
Can the warrant article language be edited prior to town meeting?
There are some mechanisms, but I'm not.
I'm just wondering where you're going with this.
No, I wanted for us to be able to comment. It's going to come up. They're going to ask. It's been noted that it will be asked as to what are the budgetary implications of this warrant article.
Michael,
Yeah.
did anybody ask what the budgetary impacts are going to be if this article doesn't pass? If we don't,
That's a good one.
no, seriously.
That's
That
a
is
great answer to the question, Andy.
Yeah, use it. I like it.
Nope, they didn't ask that. And what I would, but what in any case,
Meeting about sustainability.
what was that?
I think Peggy was talking to
Oh,
somebody else.
Sorry,
Oh, okay, fine. I thought you're welcome to participate, Peggy.
I'll mute myself.
No, you don't have to mute yourself. What I suggest to anybody is you can raise your hand or start talking. Whether you're a member or not a member, you're more than welcome to actively participate. So I encourage it. Yes, but I think but it still follows even from Andy's comment that, okay, let's say it is passed. They want to know what is it. It's all recommendations here. And I'm wanting to know whether we feel comfortable as a group, both coordinators and in the committee, about the fact that if you look at all of these items here, whether in essence, we are trying to do most of this or almost all of it. And that to what extent, if there's any budgetary implications, there's budgetary implications that'll come up when we talk a little bit about advisory and the sustainability coordinator's budget. That if there's no coordinator's budget, that it would be hard to do all of this. But between the coordinator's budget and our committee, that I don't know whether we're prepared to say that we are essentially working on all of this as a group. And I'm curious what people feel about what we could say at a select board advisory or town meeting.
Well, Michael, I would, definitely bring in Andy's comment. But my first response to a question like that, and you know, the select board passed this favorably, and I don't remember them asking that type of question, but
They said it came up at that meeting. They said the implications will come up at the next meeting of that.
yeah,
Did they actually vote on it?
I thought, or no, they're holding back. I guess they're holding back.
They don't
but
see, they no longer
They
vote on it.
sounded favor, they sounded
Right,
favorably.
but they said at the.
But where I was going,
Yeah,
you know, just my simple answer would be is, you know, the students here are asking, you know, for the huge changes that, you know, everybody I think knows by now have to be made. And there are going to be costs borne by municipalities and by residents. But, you know, though the exact costs are not known at this time, and certainly our sustainability coordinators will help to alleviate those costs, bringing in grants and guiding us through this transition. But
May I just make the following empirical comment that I don't know how it answers the question for you, Michael, but I think it underscores the importance of the continued discussion and education and visibility of these topics. And that is that I've been walking with a neighbor of mine, and you know, I've talked about my solar panels and so on. So, you know, he's finally got the bug, like, okay, so I need to get some solar panels. So I've been talking to a solar panel company. I said, oh, that's great. Now, what are you going to do, you know, with those solar panels? How many are you going to get, and what is it going to benefit you? And he goes, what do you mean? It's just going to power my house electricity. And I go, yeah, well, your house is about the same age as my house. My house, I've already put a new furnace in. Your house is the same age, but you don't have a new furnace yet. So your furnace is, you know, borderline. So when your furnace goes, you know, do you want to have enough capacity to maybe put in a geothermal, you know, system? And he goes, well, tell me about geothermal systems. And so we talked about that. And so now he wants to have a further conversation with, like, Dorothea about, you know, geothermal systems and how much energy it would use. So how, you know, what to upscale his, you know, solar system panels to. So it's part of this whole system. We got to catch people when it's the time, and we need to do that with visibility, education, and so on. And, you know, it's that costs the town some money, because we got to put out this, you know, visibility network of information, so that people, when they're at that point, will get to hear these types of discussions, as opposed to just a ad hoc by luck that I happen to bring that up, as opposed to, you know, not bringing it up.
So do we want to segment this into like residential costs, or like residential marketing versus municipal
I guess
costs?
I'm asking, I think, a much narrower question, maybe. Of when you look at these items here. Right, I guess, right, maybe my question is, if we go one by one through this thing here, that communicating to town departments, there's no cost there. That's just what's going on now anyway, and what we're doing. But if we're not, because I guess a little, I'll bring up the next issue of, I'll combine this with the issue of, at advisory, there was a problem, there was a realization, and an issue came up of the fact that the budget for the sustainability coordinators is now about over 50% higher than what was sort of more formally approved at the sort of $38,000 or $39,000. That was at some point back between, was to do the coordinators, both Gino and Dorothea. It's now was budgeted for a year. At Dorothea had the full 39, roughly $1,000, 38, and Gino had an additional amount of about 13 hours, I believe. And Dorothea had the kind of 19 hours. And so so that was something David Williams put in place without everybody's full involvement, let's put it that way. And so the idea that the budget is over 50% higher than what they thought the town had formally approved for sustainability coordinators came up. And that's part of what's going to be on the March 16th meeting, is that a separate agenda item to address just that kind of disparity between what was originally overtly, explicitly approved and what's now in place and what's now being requested. And part of where I'm going out with this thing is to think about the fact that without that kind of additional hour, that level of magnitude of hours, that it's going to be that to do many of the activities here, that the cost to the town to doing these activities is, besides the implementation of projects, is the fact that we need a significant sustainability coordinator budget besides our own volunteer efforts. And so to me, it gets this overlaps. I'm coming at it from the point of view of that if this is a warrant article that people are going to pass and ends up passing, that the only way to actually do a lot of this work is that we need the sustainability coordinator budgets. So that's where I'm coming from. But then I'll be quiet and let Fred, and I think Tom couldn't tell if Tom wanted to speak too.
Yeah, I was just thinking, if you look at all these bullets, to backtrack before the conversation about the coordinator budget, if you look at all these bullets, it's pretty hard to say what are the policies that are going to be developed. What are the list of projects that are going to be developed? So what this basically says, and it ends with the climate action plan, is that we need to have a plan so that we can assess what the costs are and whether or not we want to pursue that particular project. So maybe I have project X, but it's going to cost $200,000 and doesn't seem like it makes as much sense as doing project Y, which is 50,000. I don't know. But I would be reticent to say bullet 3 will cost X because we don't know.
Oh, well, I guess I'm trying to think of the difference between that assessment of whether it's 200,000 and whether we want to do it versus what does it take to actually get to that point, to come up with those costs, to come up with these things here. That's the second step. I think I'm talking about what's the cost of the first step to even come up with a $200,000 number or to come up with a climate action plan. That's the level I'm at. The next level comes in a year or so based on this.
I mean, we have a case study, a geothermal assessment for Pine Hill, right? And that's,
Yeah, but that again is the actual implementation. I think the question for them is, what does it take to do something, not to carry out all, just this, I guess maybe I'm
but
being.
they did that though.
But right, I'm saying that to just come up with identifying a list of projects or to research and have a climate mobilization plan, just to get to that level, independent of what's in them to be discussed. Is that making sense? Or maybe I'm trying to split hairs that don't relate. Tom?
Peter, Tom.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I want to step back. You mentioned advisory a couple times, and they have another meeting March 16th. I thought at one of their last meetings, Dorothea and Gino were there. You were there. I listened in. I thought they approved or supported the advisory budget. Did they not vote at that time, or?
No, they never took a vote.
They never.
And I think
So-
what's coming up for the next meeting is they were recognizing that this was an ongoing budget of more like 62,000. But the next meeting is going to be a little bit more around how do you evaluate what's the output that's going to come up from that sustainability coordinator budget as a whole. which to me overlaps with saying that many of the activities that this thing is asking for, to identify projects, to do a climate action plan, to do communication within town, that these are the things that the coordinator positions would be sort of evaluated against in terms of accomplishing some of these tasks. But that's part of what would be the activities of that position in budgeting.
And my other question is from, again, from my memory from that advisory meeting, and you made this statement a minute ago, the town had approved Dorothea's salary, but it sounds like the hours for Gino had never been in a line item approved by advisory, or
That's correct.
that. And so how do we defend that now and protect it?
I think it's just an ongoing reality that they, I don't know, they're in a tough spot to say that
Because they are looking to clip every penny, as you know. With the budgets, the schools and the library are just out of control. Every other line item is just getting scrutinized very toughly.
yeah, no, I agree. It's that's what's going to come up on the 16th, and to what extent they have, what options they see versus they want to know if they keep the budgets. I was reading their email that I forwarded to all of you, that they might consider the budgets. The question is what are they getting for the budget?
And have we been able to supply them with, this is the amount of, and they're talking pure money, this is the amount of money, savings and incentives that have come in already, so that they can look at that against a 60,000 and say, okay, that, it's a good start.
Yeah, I think that's something that helps. The question is they want to go forward looking as to what it is.
It might be good to, even though you probably sent it, I think you sent it in that annual report to advisory 2 or 3 weeks ago, to resend it or reformat it in a simpler table. Just say, hey, we brought in 120,000 last year in direct grants and in-kind Eversource, whatever. Get everything in the kitchen sink in that list.
Yeah, including things like the estimated per year savings from the streetlight conversion, all of that stuff.
Well, there's also, but I'm going to argue that I want to get away from that metric. I want to go back to the metric in the job description that was essentially, yes, there's grants and financing that come, there are grants that come in, but there's also energy savings to town, and there's energy savings to town operations and to residents if they do RE, and then there's avoided carbon emissions that can be valued. And then there's also just outreach and education to accelerate addressing climate change. That I want to, as I said a little at the advisory, I said that the metric of just pure money and grants is something we have to move beyond. Life has changed. We have a new mandate. We have these carbon greenhouse gas reduction targets that it's, and I'd say to them, it's almost like an unfunded mandate, but a necessity.
I totally
agree,
Michael, but
I agree, Michael. I agree.
Yeah, I totally agree, but I think it's still essential, especially for advisory, to be giving them dollar signs and savings and incentives and all of that stuff, plus what you're talking about. But
Yeah,
I think the main argument for them is, we're spending this much money, what are we getting?
Right, and the question is, that's a historical view of whether you got $100,000.
Yeah, but you have to meet them halfway, Michael.
I know,
You
I don't
have
mind
to
doing
talk
that.
their language and bring them forward with your argument.
Right, but I'm saying
So
even
have
with
both. Have
with the
both.
historic, we still have to go forward with the idea of what's going to come up in the next year.
Yeah,
And
I
so
agree.
we're going to have some grants. We might get another green communities. there'll be some possible outreach. Dorothy is putting in for something that climate action plan. You know, is doing some MVP action thing. And whether that basically, I'm partly trying to tie it into the warrant article, is the fact of saying whether it's Dorothea with the grant there, or we do a different kind of approach with Dorothea and come up with a climate action plan. There was something I sent earlier today where I was musing that we could have a much more abbreviated kind of plan that we would, as a group, be doing that if this was passed and the select board said, okay, I'm going to actually do these things, that we as a group feel comfortable over the next year saying that, okay, we'll come up with some sort of plan, one way or another. Might be different levels of detail, depending on what funding or what effort is worth putting into it. And that will come up with some list of projects to reduce the town's greenhouse gas emissions, which includes the fact that we'll do a mass save program. We'll probably do some heat pump, another solar. We could identify, at least with some priorities, what we think are projects. We could talk about some policies about carbon sequestration, second bullet. That as a cluster, I'm trying to get at whether as a group with the coordinator's budget intact, that's what they can look forward to, is the fact that not only will there be some possible funding to cover it, that we will be addressing many of the requests that are made in this warrant article. And that's a position that as a group and feel like taking, and include the fact that, as we once talked about for the website, we would find issues that are politically important for greenhouse gas reductions and climate change issues that we would work on, saying these are places to write to the state and the federal, just like that example of renewables that came up, whether the New England grid is delaying some more aggressive adaptation, inclusion of renewable energy, and whether that's something fine we want to say something about, that we want to make sure we push that, so that there's whatever 7 bullets. And Dorothy is looking even on the equitable and just transition, whether she includes in a proposal some sort of environmental justice with Framingham, that we can, whether we feel comfortable as a group saying that there are no immediate budgetary, if the coordinators are funded, that's just part of the output of what we're doing, coordinators and as our committee, and that it's an answer to that question about the next year budget implications for the town budget from this warrant article, and what we would want to be doing anyway, which would we want to be doing all this stuff whether the warrant article passes or not. Sorry if I talked too long.
Well, I still have the issue of, do we have the time in this committee, and even with Dorothea and Gino, to do this in a way that engages the rest of the town, rather than being something that comes out of the ESC and everybody says, oh, that's nice, and puts it on a shelf. But what if, the DPW was already invested in this, and town forest was already invested in this. So if we have the time to do it, great. Then yeah, that saves a lot of money, and it comes up in under the budget. But if we don't engage the town in the construction of this thing, I think it's a wasted effort.
I would agree. And the question is, partly you're asking for Gino and Dorothea, their buy-in on the sense that that in a way, how they spend that sustainability coordinator hours that they have, that buy-in and community tie-ins are a high priority. Is that Brad typing away with minutes that are longer than we'd ever want?
Sorry. Yeah, I'll be less zealous.
Oh.
All you got to do is mute, Brad, then you can type away like crazy.
Yeah, no. I'm more fearing. I'm just looking forward.
Yeah, more fearing the length of the minutes.
I was looking out for my own self-interest on that one.
My first minutes that I submitted were 4 pages long, Brad, and by the time it got done, there were 3 pages of red lines.
Yeah, so
Yeah, I guess.
I'd rather you participated. I mean, we
Yeah.
discussed the pros and cons of the warrant. We could
Yeah.
summarize this in a few sentences.
Okay.
Whatever. I guess I'd like to hear from Dorothea and Gino. I don't mind putting you guys on the spot about this whole issue and the budgetary stuff, and it all overlaps with the warrant and stuff.
Go ahead,
While we're
Dorothea.
waiting for them to come on, can you just undo your screen and share your screen? So
Oh,
you
yeah,
see it
sorry.
a little larger.
If we don't need this thing. Yeah, I actually always keep people small. I can't take looking at everybody's big faces.
Sorry, Gino, go ahead.
Yeah, so you guys are hearing me really well?
Yep.
Okay, good. So, you know, for me, it's kind of like, what can I say? I think, you know me, I'm a blunt German. I think you raised expectations that were unrealistic. And at some point, you know, this has to be addressed. And when I say unrealistic is that, you know, Gino and my work will continuously, you know, our salaries will be paid by grants, and that's just not the way it works. But I think that expectation was raised or wrongly perceived as such. And I think we cannot just dance around and cater to something that is not true for any other positions in other towns. And I think we have to discuss that. What is it worth the citizens to have sustainability coordinators? And I really don't have any answers how to do that, how to defend it.
What do you say we could, what do you say we're gonna do? Let's forward looking. Let's drop that whole metric of purely dollars and think about
Well,
the
it's
range of
being
metrics.
repeated every time we're coming on. It's the people have the perception we have signed on to these positions because we were promised they were going to pay for themselves. And that was perceived wrongly or presented wrongly. And I think it has to be for good be addressed because it'll haunt everybody, whether it be me or somebody else who's going to step in. And yes, don't like look back, but look forward. Every time we're, you know, you have discussions in budgets, they will look at the sustainability people. And that's not how it can go
Well,
on.
for the sake of our conversation here, let's
Right.
try to move beyond that and say, what's
I
the
think,
alternative
yeah.
vision that we could present?
Yeah, but Michael, let me just be honest. You cannot just say in a room of 20 people, let's move on, because some people still dwell with that perception, and it cannot be that you decide this perception is gone and now let's just look at this differently.
But we have to come up with an alternative, and that's what I want
Yeah.
to work on.
Well, Tom's hand is up.
Can I offer one suggestion? You know, it seems like the grants, certainly the larger dollar ones, are mainly to solve municipal problems. You know, the money comes in for a municipal project. But as we well know, the majority of our greenhouse gas issues are residential, you know, the homes and the cars. And I think we could try, and Dorothea, Gino, help me here and see if I'm speaking truth at all. I mean, the state and the federal government has had fairly substantial rebates, tax incentives, and in some cases they were really increased on like heat pumps. Is there any way to track that and show that Sherborn is getting 80 grand a year to its residents in the rebates or tax incentives, or? Because I think that is, you know, kind of a fuzzy dollar line item, but it's a line item that we can say the sustainability coordinators are achieving. And on top of that, the 100% grant line items that you can list. But so that's one question. But Dorothea, unfortunately, on our select board, several of the people came from the advisory board. Apparently, when this was, brought through and they approved. So you've seen it, every meeting you've had to defend this. They're not going to drop this. It's going to come up, like you said, unless it's put to bed. And that may take a couple of years to put to bed, but let me stop there and just say, is there a way of monetizing all of the other things the residents are
I know
eligible
Frank
for?
has his hand up, but Tom, just to respond to part of your comment, that the grants are mostly for the municipal side. That's partly true, but remember the charging stations, which now total about 100,000 or over in grants, is totally for the residents. There's no town electric vehicles. They're there
That's
to
true.
encourage residents to purchase electric vehicles, to have the comfort that there's a place to charge them. So that's one point, just right there.
Good.
Green communities obviously is for municipal projects.
I guess, Frank, just
All
go
right,
ahead,
so-
just jump in.
Yeah, I was at a meeting, and you know, I think you were at it also. And I don't remember which one it was. It may have been a planning board, it may have been a select board, but Sean Colleen, our DPW director, was at that meeting. And he made the comment that he was just finishing a presentation about the lack of natural gas that's going to be coming into communities. And as a result, there's going to be these blackouts where, you know, various electric companies are just going to be turning off the power because they're just not going to have the electricity to be able to produce. And he says, why are we promoting electric cars? I said, we need to be promoting electric cars as well as solar panels so that when those things happen, we can override that system, you know. And if everybody's driving gasoline cars, the problem is not going to be with the gas, it's going to be with the gasoline. And we already see the prices of gasoline going into the $4.50. You know, in California, prices is even higher, into the, you know, $5 and $6 for premium gasoline. And a lot of people in this town drive Land Rovers and Escalades and vehicles like that that use the premium and a lot of gasoline and all of that. The DPW director drives a huge, big old truck. You know, he may need to. I don't know. But we need to start looking at doing things more sustainable. And it's a dollar and cents thing, but I think that's what's talking to your point, is that what are the future of what it is we need to be looking at, and what crises are we facing that we need a Gino and a Dorothea, you know, before they become these huge, big problems for us. And, you know, maybe that's some of the things we need to maybe, I don't know if we do it as a separate offline thing, we get a couple of us and we jot down a whole bunch of things of, you know, and maybe some articles that we, reference to highlight why we need to keep going down this road. And I think that's what you're asking us to do, is looking at, not only is it the dollar and cents and what is the metric for today, but also what is the future of what it is that Dorothea and Gino can and need to provide that is truly needed.
I don't want to, you know, wait a little before don't know if I'm beating a dead horse by bringing up the idea of what it is. I have a feeling what might work, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe people have to comment that I'm being too short-sighted. And the fact that part of this transition of what the goal, the metrics for the sustainability coordinator budget is, coming up with a different storyline that maybe it takes a year or so to change, or it's just a very blunt thing of that. Sure, we might get grants that will pay for some significant part of it, but that's no longer the absolute metric. If they want to defund the positions, it's a terrible thing to say in front of two people who are relying on this, because that's the only metric that they want to use, then they're being short-sighted. That if they're going to pass a warrant article, that's why I don't mind tying it to the warrant article. If you're going to pass a warrant article like this and expect things to happen, then this is the cost of having that warrant article. That is that you need coordinators to do this. And part of where I come around as a loop where I put it to sort of Gino and Dorothea again is whether is that to what extent do we as a group, the two of you together with us, we have to decide what our priorities are, that whether priorities get driven by some of the stuff in the warrant article, because that's what we would say, that what is it that we say we want to do over the next year? It's coming up back to what is our, like, even for the committee, what are our goals for the next year? And so a year and 6 months or so, 5 months, which is because this is the next fiscal year. What's our goals for the remaining part of this fiscal year and the next fiscal year, in terms of what we want to put up, what we want to be able to say in another report, annual report equivalent for the next 18 months of that. Yes, we're going to do a climate action plan. We're going to identify some programs. We're going to run a mass save thing there. We're going to try to start sampling, doing a little bit of a solar one again, and maybe trying to figure out what to do with heat pumps. If we go through a plan and figure out what are the priority items, we already have them in the cap that was, in a sense, worked on from last summer with the intern. The question is, are we as a group willing to commit that that's the kind of metrics? And community aggregation is going to come up and take time. I could easily mark up calculations to say, fine, if we save even 1/10 of a cent per kilowatt hour for some people, and then maybe there's this much money if there's no savings in dollars, but if renewable energy gets increased by 30%, then that's how many pounds of CO2 valued at $50 or $100 a ton. Here's a dollar value of that. Those kind of metrics, and and how do we measure outreach, which is a thing that I put to sort of us and Dorothea about. Okay, do we want to say that, fine, reaching out to 400 people is a metric, having climate action plans a metric, reaching out to 50 or 100 people on doing solar or heat pumps in the next year produces some significant savings. Do we want to go to that? Those are the kind of metrics that we want to move everybody to, because they just want to, I have a feeling from when I read the memo, is that they just want to see that we have some metrics. If we're not going to do those dollars of grants that pay for it, they want to see what metrics we're going to do and what we would say. And the metrics could be simple: product, the climate action plan. Product is a list of priority projects that we vetted with town, that we do the town meetings, that we have to spend the time, and that Dorothy and Gino have to commit to some time of doing the outreach, whether it's to departments or residents, that we get this kind of stuff vetted over the next budget year, that's part of what we commit to doing as a metric for the fiscal year that the budget is going for. That's what I'm trying to see, whether we're all on the same page about that, and that comes back a little bit more on Gino and Dorothea because they have more hours. What's prepared to, I feel like that's going to be what's going to be pressed on the 16th meeting with advisory, and it'll be on the 26th as well at the public hearing.
So is it enough then to just simply list all of the accomplishments of Dorothea and Gino? Or do we then need to take the additional step to link the accomplishments with specific numbers, whether they're energy savings, carbon offset?
I think it has to be forward-looking as to what we think we're going to accomplish in that budget year. I think they've already accepted the fact that, fine, maybe 100,000, maybe we underestimated what was accomplished so far. Depends on your value, how you value the charging stations. For example, whether you value them at 30 or 40 versus 100. But I think that they've recognized that sure, there's $100,000 that we could easily do and more, and we could do some forward projections of that. But I'm still, but I think it has to be forward-looking as to what it is we're gonna list as a group, or I say, or to some extent, Dorothy and Gino, it's up to you to, right, to what extent do you even want the Energy Committee speaking with the two of you, or whether you want to prepare your own sense of what it is that you'll be evaluated on going forward to justify. And it gets tricky because of the fact that we try to always view it as a team. Because clearly, right, the Green Communities grant can be a lot of money, and it makes sense for Gino to have written it, given his history of doing it and his familiarity. But right, other people could write a Green Community grant, so that we always want to look as our accomplishments as a team. And the coordinators in particular should just do it as a team, and we support that. But it depends, and part of it is for the 16th is really the coordinator's budget. I come back to Gino and Dorothea. What is it that you even want the Energy Committee to do then? I mean, I've been advocating for certain things here, or that, but maybe, but the Energy Committee doesn't have a budget. We're not on the line. What is it that you even want from the Energy Committee? And what do we want to do as a group?
I think it's important for the ESC to be the primary advocates for us, because for us, we need to participate, definitely. But it's, as you pointed out earlier, it's kind of self-serving for us. You know, it's a little bit awkward to be saying, well, yes, you need to keep paying us because it's our job. Whereas from the ESC, it comes across as, these are important things for the town and we need their assistance to get them done.
And wasn't there the list that was put together, maybe combination between Gino and Dorothea and maybe more? I remember seeing a list of all these accomplishments, and that may have already been submitted to advisory. But I saw a list of things that had been done, as well as things that you were looking at doing in the future, which included the solar program, you know, the geothermal, you know, the stuff that you were doing at the schools, the work, you know, there's a lot of items on that list that you were doing in terms of education and outreach and visibility, you know, the car shows, you doing something at the library fair, you know, et cetera, et cetera. You had a list of all those things.
Yeah, that's
is that what you're talking about, Mike?
That's the annual report that we gave to everybody. But again, I'm trying to argue what's forward-looking. I'm trying to go.
Aren't some of those items, those forward-looking items?
Not many of them. Some of them we could do continuation of outreach, but it's a matter of still itemizing what it is that is a forward-looking plan that is, I mean, I don't know how detailed, I mean, we don't have to be that detailed, maybe, because they could say, fine, we're going to work on this, but that, to what extent are we going to do that kind of at the 16th and the 26th? Is somebody, whether it's the committee in the front or each coordinator, I mean, how, who's going to present something forward-looking? And whether we want to tie it to the warrant article, because part we wants to say is that the warrant article summarizes a lot of what we would probably say we'd want to be doing anyway, independent of whether it was even on the ballot.
So when we say forward-looking, these are goals that Dorothea and Gino have over the next year. And if that's the case, we probably want to include some vagueness to them, just because priorities change and opportunities change. And are they going to get judged on this in a year? Like, what if we kind of misfire with some of these aims?
Fine, that's trial and error. We're learning. We learn by doing. So I think that's not, I don't have a problem with that. And I agree, it's an evaluation of, I'd still like to pose it as an evaluation as the whole group of us, because that to the extent that we make some group consensus about what it is that we want to do and what role, it's like on the climate action plan, are we going to do that? And who's going to work on it? Is it somebody just one or two, or do we have some group responsibility? I mean, I'd like to view it as a group responsibility. But I don't know if that answers your question there.
Michael, isn't what you're talking about now the real question? What are our goals? And if that's what we're going to use to argue for sustaining the positions of the coordinators, then we need to come up with those goals. Obviously, yes, we should talk about what has been accomplished to date with an eye towards the costs saved. But I agree with you. We need to talk about where we're going in the future. And that's a bigger discussion. And I don't know how we can do it in the time frame we have, but perhaps it requires splintering off and having a smaller group come up with what our goals are for the future.
Yeah, no, I guess I'm trying to come at whether there is some level of consensus of the fact that, in a sense, even if it's very general about the fact that whether we want to come up with some sort of rough, maybe very simple, depending on level of detail and what support we get, climate action plan of goals, as well as try to implement a few, keep doing the green communities, the efficiency, do the mass save for weatherization, and try to do something on solar and heat pumps.
Right.
And that, in a way, for me, is more than, in some ways, and do some more outreach or whatever on a whole range of things, whether it's EVs or something. That's it. I mean, I find that that's maybe a skeleton of goals that that obviously is subject to change, as Brad said. Who knows what will come up.
I think the projects or the goals provide the outreach. Really the town, now I'm going back a number of years, but I think the town was energized by the Solarize Sherborn program, and that provided the outreach. And if it were followed on its heels by another one, then that really keeps it going. So I wouldn't worry so much about outreach as outreach, and worry more about the projects that can cause the outreach. I think a very, very important part of the coordinator's position, and I know Dorothea in particular has been doing it, is the coordination with other towns. I think finding out what other towns are doing and borrowing from their successes, and also dealing with the state agencies, as we've got these statewide goals of carbon reduction. Well, they need to provide the guidance to the towns on what can be done to meet those goals. So I think, and perhaps Gino and Dorothy are already doing that, but I think that's a very important responsibility for the coordinators.
Mhm.
If I could just add right on top of Andy's theme there, I agree with that. And, and I think it was just, our memories, of course, fade. It was just a year, I think this time last year, that Dorothea was finishing up, a huge project on the website. And that's out there now. And that, you can remind town fathers and mothers of that, which is an ongoing project, and the residents and everybody continue to benefit from the education it provides. And the other big project that I think is going on 2 years now, of course, is aggregation. And of course, we're all frustrated that the state hasn't acted on it yet. We're just sitting here in limbo. But that's going to create a huge amount of work for both this board and the coordinators when aggregation can be brought back to the town, and we're probably going to have to re-educate people and get them to sign up for the 100% levels and everything. So between that and everything people are covering here, and the students initiative, there's plenty of work for 2 part-time coordinators. It's mind-boggling, if you ask me.
Oh, I agree. It's more, well, to figure out how to move forward on this topic. I guess I'll just address the committee part here and say whether you're okay with whether we need to meet before the 16th and what's presented there, or whether you're all in agreement that to some extent I might have some conversations with Gino and Dorothea about what position the ESC takes in terms of being the fact that, yes, we have a whole set of activities, including what we laid out here, what's in the warrant article, programs that we want to do, and things that we need these kind of budgets, that we could take the lead on that, or depending on conversations with Gino and Dorothea, we could take a step back if they want to take the lead on presenting that kind of stuff. And whether the committee is okay with either approach, or whether we're going to schedule a meeting in 2 weeks to talk about this further, about whether it's our long-term goals and sort of to what extent programs.
Perhaps a subgroup could work over the next week and a half or so and put something out to the group so that we're not starting from zero, but that we're starting from some place that we can actually discuss it. And I totally agree, we need to be forward looking. I also agree with Frank that we need to put that damn budget thing to bed.
Yeah, no, it's gonna just be a gradual process, as people have said, and as Dorothea says, it's good, right? It's not just gonna go away. But on the other hand, I think we're okay so far. But I guess we can do that. The question is whether we want to meet in 2 weeks, and we have some conversations with Dorothy and Gino on the side along the way to see what it is that might make sense as to how it's presented at advisory. And whether people want to meet in 2 weeks. Is the 14th a day that works for people?
I'm finding fine to do that. And actually, I have a question for Dorothea. Dorothea, is it the 16th that night you have that Sherborn climate
Yes,
change
Tom, and
event?
it's mind-boggling. We've been and the AC members don't know this, but we have been scheduling with the Charles River Water Association on a webinar for residents. I think it's going on for months now. And we're bringing in students, and this date has been our date to present. And yet again, we need to push it to a new date. And I wanted to quickly get this out of the way because I know, Tom, you want to be present on that, and Gino certainly as well. So if it's not,
hours for that? How long is that? What is that? What's it
It is-
scheduled for?
it was scheduled for the 16th from 7 to 8, open-ended for residents to ask questions, etc. And it's about like our particular Sherborn situation in terms of water conservation, all kinds of water issues. And was it, yeah, go
Climate
ahead.
change.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know, right. They just think that they can just summon us.
exactly.
Obviously,
And
there's a
it's,
certain, I wasn't keeping track of that meeting, so I apologize that
Mhm.
whether it's sometime right then and there. I mean, they're trying to find a time to meet because they think that working this out before the big public hearing on the 26th would be a more conducive atmosphere to sorting out what might happen on the big public joint hearings on the 26th. So they were just trying to find a day. Originally, I thought it was supposed to be on the 9th. And right. Yeah, I don't know what to say. Right. Obviously, I think it would be useful to meet with advisory to resolve this rather than leave it to the 26th. Are you able to reschedule it, or do we want to just go to them and say, can they find another day? I don't know it's obviously complicated.
I cannot say if we can find a new date because it also depends on students doing kind of like an introduction of their work at the STF. And they told me they will be busy after March 17th. So I don't know what the priority here is, but
It's tricky.
I would prioritize advisory
mhm.
if the budget is at risk.
And I agree with you, Tom. So let's just, with Gino and you in the room, just decide on a new date so that I can go back to CRWA and tell them we have been kind of like surprised by a meeting that we have to attend. And Michael, if I could just take 2 minutes or 1 minute to
Sure.
have Gino and Tom butt in on what the best dates are, because I want to shoot this out as soon as possible to her.
Well, on that, Dorothea, did they say the students after the 17th or including the 17th? I wonder if it could just be bumped to one day. There's no
Let me
select
go-
board meeting, although Michael probably has Concom that night.
Yeah. I'm
All
going
right,
back
it's
to.
St. Patty's Day.
St. Patrick's Day.
What kind of day?
St. Patrick's.
St. Patrick's Day.
Oh my
Green
God,
be- green
lots of
beer.
drinking going on. Oh, yeah. I
That,
forgot
by the
about
way,
that.
that on that day, my name changes to Gene O. Colucci.
Ah. And I guess we know what your color you're gonna dye your hair.
Yeah.
Exactly. So how about Tuesday, the 22nd? I know, Tom, you're on a bi-weekly schedule for Groundwater Protection Committee as a chair. Well, how does the 22nd look
The
like?
22nd is open right now on my calendar.
Do you know how would you?
Yeah, that should be okay for me.
Okay, let's put it this way. And if students cannot make that introduction, then that's just what it is, because, you know, getting 3 people or 4 entities under one umbrella, it seems to be impossible. So I have that moved to the 22nd at 7 p.m. I think it's a total of an hour with the Q&A from residents on, you know, what they can actually do for conserving water. And we will also introduce some residents that are already doing this very successfully. Yeah, and I guess advisory on the 16th, we don't have an agenda yet, right, Michael, for this kind of like budget discussion?
No, it just seems to be a few different items that they're gonna have on there.
Yeah. Mhm.
I couldn't tell whether to try to probably too much to try to keep it there and tell them couldn't show up until 9 o'clock or something like that.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's, we could still try that kind of, because I know they're gonna have recreation there. You can't
mhm,
tell how many different items they would have, and whether, but that would sort of cut off discussion. It'd be a little
Yeah.
nerve wracking to try to fit those two things in the same night.
mhm.
Um,
Michael, are they repeating everybody? Because I mean, they had recreation several weeks ago.
No, they're only repeating people that they have some outstanding issues. Recreation asked for a large increase, for example.
You're right. They asked for a lot to,
So there's,
fix that.
I think for some of the more thornier ones that they just want to bat around the ideas a little bit more before the 26th public hearing.
so that's another bad sign. They put us in the thorny pile.
Well, I don't know if it's thorny. They just want to they just want to think, they're thinking about it more as you read the email, what they're looking for. I think it's more a matter of something that I'm not sure how complicated a vision is that we have to present as a group, that to say that this is a worthwhile budget, even if it wasn't one that they had recognized that they had approved last year. It was sort of not fully explicit in last year's budget, even though it was there.
How many minutes are reserved for this? Because it's, I usually, when I go into a meeting, I do have to know how many minutes I present, because otherwise, you
There's
want to be
nothing fixed in this kind of hearing.
Mhm,
There's no regulatory thing.
Okay.
There's no fixed thing, unlike the 26th, where
mhm.
proponents get, I think even at the public hearing, is that they're still holding to the 5 minutes and then the 2 minutes,
I think
like
so.
town meeting. Yeah, only in this large public hearing on the 26th and a town meeting do you have these very specific time issues. 26 is just, I mean, the meeting on the 16th is much more flexible. And we could talk more about what it is we all do between now. So we're going to try to meet on the 14th at 4 o'clock, 3:30, 4, 5, I don't know what works for people. I'm flexible about the time.
I am as well.
I'm
As
flexible.
well.
Does anybody have any constraint other than the 4 o'clock time?
The later, the better for me.
Okay, so does that mean 4 versus 4:30 makes a difference to you?
That does for me. I would rather do 4 if you don't mind, Brad.
Okay.
Be done by 5:30.
Yeah, it doesn't really impact me until, I mean, it's that block of time, like I don't really truly free up until 7:30 in the evening. So 4 versus 4:30 is all the same. I just end up finding coverage.
Okay, 4 o'clock it is. Unless somebody cares that it's 3:30, would that help anybody?
I can't do then. That's
Okay.
cutting into the workday.
Okay, 4 o'clock on the 14th of March, we will continue this discussion and we will have some interim discussions along the way. I'll hear more try to get more from Gino and Dorothea, whether we have a little sub meeting there or something, and some others, 2 others of people. If we're having little sub meetings before then, and we're trying to keep it non-quorum, are there a couple of you that are particularly interested in participating along the way? Then I can.
I'm
invite-
not available prior to that meeting on
Okay.
the 14th, but
I'm going to try to help potentially.
Okay, let's, I think we've done with that topic there. And so I got the warrant, I got all these. Yeah, I even went back to, I guess the climate action plan, we can, I mean, it's 5:15 now. I'm trying to look at the agenda because I'm going to actually share something that just to move a little on to, whoops, oh, actually can't see it. Let's see here. Oops. Interesting how this thing works. Okay, this is something for people to think about. I'm going to send you out a new file, and I'm going to have to talk with Dorothea a little bit more about this before our next thing. This is sort of some idea that I was talking with Fred and I were talking about how to even organize a climate action plan in terms of thinking about what we would do. This file that I'm showing you is different than what I sent you. But it basically has a draft, whereas I was just trying to think of subheadings, what kind of activities that we might do, and so we could establish some priorities. The Sherborn plan thing here that you see here is what was the climate action plan that was done over the summer by our student. And Fred pulled together what was in the Concord plan. I started trying to make my marks about what I liked for Concord. Then there was Carlisle he found there, and he had put in Wayland. These are just all their activities. I've created a new section here where I stuck in Acton's plan. But I'll send this file.
Is that Acton or Action?
Acton. Oops. Thank you very much. I'm sure that hardly ever happens to them. I just shouldn't worry about doing it now. I'm going to send this out. It's part of an idea that maybe I'll send out more after I talk with Dorothea a bit more. It's sort of a little premature about what it is that if we wanted to move forward on doing a climate action plan to some extent, more driven by our own, that we can come up with ways that, what are our priorities that would sort of form the basis of a consensus with people, and then what programs and projects we might do. But I will send this out anew. So I just wanted to introduce where it all came from, but you might wait. I might wait until I talk to Dorothea and send it out with, after talking a little more with her, given what she's been doing. And the other people have things since it's already 5:22. Does anybody here, including Fred, who has hand raised, wanted to say something, and then Tom, and whether the Gino or Dorothea want to give any updates?
Just very quickly, the sections on Wayland, Concord, all of those, there will be repetitive stuff in there, but I just took what they had rather than edit it.
Oh yeah, it's the same thing I did with Acton. I just copied theirs so people could see how it was organized and what they had. There's obviously, each one overlaps with the other. We just have to figure out what it is we might feel comfortable with. Tom, sorry.
I was just going to add to the comment of Fred. Fred, I and Frank met time, so we started throwing around some similar priority lists. So Fred, you certainly can incorporate that. And finally, and I sent this notice to people in the past week. Yet another good one just showed up from Weston. They just produced one.
Okay.
And it's extra work, but I think it's not bad. Looking at several of these, they're nearby towns. They're fairly new plans. If we get money to hire a consultant, we might hire one of their consultants. So be good to know who's doing what.
Yeah, no, you could send it out. I can't tell if you sent it to all of us, and I just didn't see it. We could just copy the table of contents essentially into this file so people can have something to peruse. Because I started highlighting just the major headings, just so that we could see how they vary. And I guess if there's something that you guys came up with when you were working before, whether just throw it in there under the draft kind of area, you can send it to me. Any other general things that people want to bring up on what they're
Gino has his hand raised.
well, just go. People just pipe in.
Physical hands.
Just butt in.
Yes, just briefly on the agenda item, update on new building code developments. The state is having a series of public hearings on that. The one for the, people can go to any of them, they're all virtual, but the one that's focused on Metro Boston is on Thursday morning, and I plan to attend that one, but if anyone else is interested, that's coming up.
Oh, that's feedback on the straw plan, I guess. that they put it.
Mhm.
Yeah, no, I guess, right. I mean, one thing is, I don't know how much we want to get involved in making comments or whether, Gino, can you ask Chris whether how actively he's reviewing that kind of stuff? To see whether he's something that he
I
might-
definitely will.
because I could see there were comments from of something I felt after I saw the first introduction of it. And I guess it came up at the Heat Smart Alliance, is the fact that they really didn't, they weren't as prescriptive about houses being really energy tight, the building envelope being tight, that seemed to get not as much emphasis as they did for commercial buildings. And whether that's something that should get a little bit more emphasis, or whether I'm misunderstanding when they say it has to meet a certain HERS or home energy rating, that whether that includes enough of that kind of stuff or not. But the question is whether that's the kind of comments that we as a town should make on the plan as a group, and whether we can get Chris involved in joining us on something. Because I would love to, even if he comes to a meeting, we schedule him to come to a meeting and we just sort of see if we can write a letter that we can get Chris and the town, us, to get even the whole select board to push.
Gino, do you know what the scope is for these building codes? Is it just new construction, or does it also include additions, heavy modifications to existing homes?
I'm pretty sure it does include the renovations and additions.
Okay, yeah, I asked just
Yeah,
because I don't know how much new construction is we expect to happen in Sherborn over the next decade. And to me, it seems like really the bulk of the work has to happen with existing homes.
I remember reading some of the past big changes, and there was always a criteria, and Gino, you probably know this much better, that if the size of the addition or I don't know if it was a dollar amount of the renovation or the square feet, then you couldn't be grandfathered. You had to meet current building code. Do you know more about that, Gino?
Not specifically, but yes, that general concept, I do remember that was the case.
Yeah, I mean, it does come with the opportunity. I don't know whether Frank wants to, how much you have time to deal with, and you, Gino, even, is how much we want to put into, whether it's appropriate in the zoning or any of the subdevelopment stuff, to put in things like extra points or extra acceptance if you're not hooking up with natural gas and you're electrifying things, and whether you're doing passive house or something like that, whether that's a whole fertile arena. Well, because now that we're going to start having, who knows where we're going to go with our 40B projects that can be quite large, or other large projects, whether is this the time to actually get something in place, even though I guess whether it all has to go before a town meeting for any of those. I don't know whether the place is in the building code or it's in the zoning regs. Make those kind of big pushes. Is that a planning board issue?
I think it's more building code. It's tough in zoning, because what are you going to do for bonuses? It's difficult to give density bonuses because of septic, requirements and such. But in the building code, it's, that's where it's more effective, I think.
Okay, so there's no angles there. Okay. Too bad. I guess it's only in the local project support that you maybe get a little
And as
bonus.
you probably know, the Attorney General ruled that Brookline, for example, and about 20 other towns tried to prohibit new fossil fuel heating sources. And it was determined that no, state law doesn't allow it. There's efforts to change that in the legislature, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, no, that's why I was thinking whether it's, right, if there's no incentives to give. whether-
Yeah,
Yeah.
incentives versus mandates. I know that's what you meant, yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Oh yeah, right, March 11th. For new members and members, essentially with the new procedures for committee membership on all committees, they start around now, where it's always an open door for any committee that each year, some of us are up for reappointment. And it's spread out. This year, 3 of us, I think Andy, Fred, and myself are up for our terms expire. Question is whether if we want to stay on the committee, we have to submit an application by March 11th. So
I'm not, so I'm all set.
okay, and they also do an open advertisement for it, to see who else is there. I don't know, maybe Peggy, you're interested. I don't know, maybe she's still there. Okay, so I wanted to bring that, and it's still the issue of whether we still have more members here, and I don't know whether bring it up again with Gina, with Dorothy, and even Brad, whether getting people who are more in the more or younger than us, than the majority of us, that have school kids or in the schools, whether to get more members like that.
Yeah, it's tricky. The parents are very busy, and oftentimes I found that, the parents in my neighborhood that are very kind of public health or sustainability or kind of racial justice focused, they're already involved in committees, whether it's the school committee or there's various other social service committees. And so, someone I would have targeted, they're just full up already, but I'll keep my eyes out.
Okay. Hey, Fred and Michael, when you fill out your application for reappointment, did you include a resume, or did you just nothing? Just the application itself then, right?
Well, I think it asked for a resume or a bio data of some sort now with the new form.
CV.
They asked
If
for
you have-
something.
It asked
Yeah.
for experience. I don't remember that it asked for a CV, but if it did, then I didn't put one in.
Well, it says, please attach a short biography
Mhm.
and or resume if available.
All right. And I see Peggy came on, whether she wanted to say something. Oh, I say, okay. Okay, in terms of. since we-
Michael,
Yes?
sorry for interrupting real quick. I
problem.
was going through my emails, and obviously in the mass energized communities like Medfield and others, there is a letter circulating that is meant to be a joint letter to the DOER in response to the straw proposal. So I just forwarded this to all members to read through. And we can talk about if we have, at the moment, we do not have a town administrator to sign this.
Well, we do. We have
We
Diane.
have an acting town administrator.
Yeah.
We have the
An
interim, right?
acting, yeah.
An interim,
Diane
right?
Moore's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the question is whether it's sufficient to have EC chair sign this or all the members, if that has enough weight. In the
When does it
past,
due? When is it due?
March 9th.
Oh, okay.
The letter is already crafted. Let me see if I can share. Yeah.
Is it committing the town to anything?
So I'm sharing this letter with you guys. You should have it in your inboxes. And this is, I don't even know who crafted that, but we'll find out. It just states that we cannot meet our climate goals without the ambitious new stretch code for our buildings.
Mhm.
The new legislation outlines the process to ensure the new stretch code is practical, affordable, and enforceable. For this reason, So it's referring to the towns that have already introduced the net zero stretch codes.
Let's see, how many pages is this thing?
This is, let me scroll down. This is page number 3.
Boy, it's long.
And
13. 13.
Belmont, Beverly,
Wow.
Boston.
We got a lot of people without us. I guess we're
Exactly.
waiting.
We should
Yeah,
put
I'm not-
ourselves in here.
Says 13 on the side there.
Wow.
A lot of towns
we are, we're
just
there.
add,
Terrible. Okay.
You made
Here
it.
we go.
I didn't realize I signed it.
Mhm.
I mean, that's good, that's fine.
No,
What
we had
else?
the question whether we want to, if you scroll back up, whether other people want to, I guess you can send in, given the way it's done, whether people can individually
Respond.
read the letter and respond, whether you want your name included. And so that way we could deal with it. And it's probably the 9th.
Yeah.
It's probably too quick. Yeah, it's too early for the, I can see where the town, I guess, if you, Gino, if you're actually talking to, is any building
building.
inspectors signed on
Yeah.
there?
Yeah,
What's that?
that would be a great idea, Michael, the building inspector.
Gino, whether when you talk to him about it, send it over to him as a way to see
Sure.
what kind of thing he'd ever sign in time.
Yeah,
And
so
I could
Let's
talk
see if
to,
yeah.
worth a shot.
you'd have to do a search, just do a control F for building.
Mhm.
But I guess we're not going to be able to, we're not going to vote it as a committee. We'll have to do it as individuals. And then we could see whether,
Well,
I
Arlington
guess,
Town
Dorothea, what I would
Manager.
say is whether you have this, whether you want to just talk to Diane, whether this is something that she would ever act on her own, because the next meeting is on the 10th.
Exactly. I have a staff meeting on Wednesday. And I could literally forward this to her and say, she's the interim town manager. In the past, David Williams would have signed things like that for us.
Yeah,
If
but we don't know
she-
whether he ever signed it without getting permission from the select board.
I think he did. He did.
Okay. You can ask her.
What's the procedure if there are throughout this individual committee members listed? And I saw that earlier today. What's the procedure if I want to put my name on here?
I assume the email has a place to reply to.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. That's
Okay,
somebody.
check that out.
And if not, we'll all figure that out. And then, and even it could be sent to, right.
Look,
it's-
here's the energy Medfield. I'm just scrolling because I want to see if there's any building.
So I suggest just doing a control F for building.
I just did and it did not.
Yeah, I'll see.
Yeah, it did not do
It
the
is
trick.
interesting. Oh, Northampton. Good.
It's
Just
too
to note,
bad.
there's a fair number of names on here of people who are no longer in office. I don't know if that means anything, but
Oh, no.
So August, Sharon. I don't even know how my name got on this.
Mhm.
We're part of,
Yeah.
we're the people, we're the point people for Mass Energize, so therefore.
Okay,
um,
anyhow, this
Okay,
is a very strong group here because it has the energy director, it has
okay,
committee, select board. Not everybody is on it, but Lisa is certainly the lady who,
okay. In this case, there's a lot of people here, whether we get everybody or not, it's not a big
yeah.
deal.
You have it in your inboxes.
Okay, fine. Thank you for
So,
pointing that out to us.
yeah,
Um, Letter to on the zoning, okay. Okay, anything else that, let's see, sorry, the grants, the update. Okay, anything else anybody wants to bring up? Since it's already been an hour and 40 minutes.
mhm. So since I have Andy on and also Brad, I'm planning this open house tour all around, how's it called? All around Sherborn Earth Day weekend. And I have found 4 people that have so far kind of like tentatively committed. So I wanted to see if, I know, Andy, you have an air source heat pump and also an hybrid. If you could see yourself doing maybe a 2-hour slot either on Saturday, April 23rd, or Sunday, April 24th, on meeting people either inside your house or outside, whatever might be, comfortable for you. And Brad as well. I know this is a commitment, but I think it's worthwhile. So think about it and reply to me if you like to do that. Tom has tentatively committed. We have David Green's house open on both days. We have Nicole Wiemeyer, who is energy coach or former energy coach, and George Motley, who was also featured in one of our newsletters. So I'm want an essential kind of like at least 8 homes and of course a couple of gardens. And I don't know if we have Peggy still on. Peggy, are you still there? Excellent. Could you unmute yourself?
Yeah.
Hi. I
Hi.
know that. How are you doing?
Good.
Excellent. So I was wondering, and this is something I just want to put in front of you. I know you're doing amazing things with your meadow rewilding. If you're open to the idea of opening your yard and explaining what you do.
It would be very brief. It's actually, it's pretty messy. I mean, I'm really
Yeah.
basically just getting the invasives out and letting the native wildflowers grow. But I've got a potato patch back there too. So I would, but it's very, very basic. It would be very basic.
Why not?
I have a wildflower meadow as well, but at that time of year, and I'm sure Peggy would agree, you're not gonna see much.
Yeah.
So true. Yeah.
In the wildflower meadow or any other
Yeah.
native
Yeah.
plantings.
It's more just the whole idea of like letting go of
Mhm.
a big lawn and, letting
Exactly.
things come back
Yeah.
that are more
Yeah.
sustainable.
Yeah.
Right. I would be
Okay with
available,
me. Yeah.
Dorothea, I would be available on the Saturday,
Yeah.
the Saturday
Wonderful,
morning.
Andy. Beautiful.
Is there any concern about COVID and masks and all that?
Well, now, here's the situation. If we have another flare up, a noticeable flare up, I think a lot of people will not do it anyways.
Right.
But I'm positive. I think we will see numbers coming down, and I make it dependent on the homeowners, kind of like, how do I feel about meeting people? I could, help them do a handout and have them look at the solar panel or at the hybrid. It's more about like really people stepping up to you and talk about, did you install this? What kind of savings did you have? Do you like riding your car? Things like that.
Right. And also, it'd be great if we could keep numbers down. I mean, I don't want to have
Exactly.
a lot of people,
Mhm.
tramp.
We can only hope.
Yeah.
You're not, Andy, like any event in Sherborn, you're not gonna get a huge number of people.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I, volunteered, but I'm just gonna have people in my backyard staring at. the
All
solar
right,
panel.
all right.
Yeah.
Well, that's okay then.
I hope they don't ask to use the restrooms.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Well, we
Hopefully
can
nobody
let
will
them know
lift.
on the tour that the restrooms are not available.
They can always go in the woods.
Yeah,
Okay,
right.
true, plenty of those.
Continuing
All
with
right, so
that meadow type of philosophy.
Right. All
Well,
right,
urine is heavy in nitrogen, so.
Yes, you'll have to frisk people that haven't taken your heat pump head.
exactly.
I'm
Okay.
fine, Dorothea. I
Okay.
don't have any plans as of right now. Maybe as we get closer to the date, we can kind of
Exactly.
secure a more definite time slot.
Yeah.
And you can have your kids do the work of explaining it.
Yeah,
They're
exactly.
not gonna help. They just disrupt.
Well, we could possibly find our, this is the weekend before our town meeting, right?
Yes.
This is, yeah, we could involve our petitioners in this if they do have time in explaining all of these systems. Why not?
Mhm.
I'll see what their availability is on that, right? Like, meeting
Okay.
people and explaining why it's important to them to do just that, what you can see on this particular house.
Okay.
Actually, Dorothy, you bring up a good idea. Do you know if the student proponents are going to have a flyer for town meeting? If so, then we could hand it out at that event, at these events.
So true, they, as far as they have gotten is like, they have produced a kind of like a slideshow of the presentation with voiceover. So that they will use that to send this to every committee, to every board in both towns. And then they're planning to have 2 Q&A sessions for these boards and committees to talk to them and to answer questions.
That's good, but you're
Wow.
reaching 10% of the residents through those
Correct.
routes.
Then they
So,
will be
a
interviewed.
lot of people with warrant articles, particularly citizens,
Mhm.
that are coming kind of out of the blue in some respects, if they have the funding, do mailers and or flyers to hand out as people walk into the town meeting.
Correct. So we will help them to build a campaign. And I think today that is the latest news. He will be interviewed by by James Kineen, reporter from the Hometown Weekly. So there will be something in the paper fairly soon.
That's
And,
good.
yeah,
We really don't have any town papers anymore.
I know, but it
It's
is,
another
I think,
problem.
yeah, there is another problem, but I think we will
Yeah.
cover all, and then at the school, they will run a campaign there as well. So,
Good.
Listen, I'm gonna have to leave.
Yeah.
I
No, I
hope
think
that
we're
doesn't.
ready. Is there anything
disrupt the
else before
forum.
I just vote to adjourn? Okay, I move to adjourn at 5:47.
Second.
I'll se-
Jump on that
No
one.
discussion. Michael, I, Andy,
Aye.
Fred,
Aye.
Brad,
I
Frank,
Aye.
Tom.
Aye.
Okay, so, oh yeah, I guess you can close the recording and.